Hey guys, welcome to the Max. You see it is sunrise. It's a beautiful morning here on the farm. We're trying to finish up early morning chores. Now let's talk about two things that I believe the government is overstepping in regulation to our freedom. And if you love freedom, you love liberty, then this should pique your interest and you should make sure that you are looking out for what's going on. So we're going to talk about two issues today that I think that is scary. It's time for us who love liberty and freedom to be aware of what's going on, gain wisdom, and see what we can do about it. Guys, today's video is going to be a good one. It starts right now. Even at 6 o'clock in the morning, the humid South is hot and I'm sweating profusely. So welcome to Mississippi. Guys, thank you for coming along today. If you're new to our channel, please go down here, push subscribe, ring the bell, and hey, leave us a comment, tell us what you think about this video. A little bit about us: we are a family of 8 living in South Mississippi, raising our own food and loving freedom each and every day. However, today's video is going to show that they are overstepping their boundaries a little bit, and sometimes freedom is leaving us. And those little steps that government does, or those little steps that we are controlled and trained and compliant with, allow us to look back and say, wow, we've lost a lot of freedom over the last few years. So let's talk about two of those today. Are they coming for your guns and your water? Are they overstepping their boundaries with guns and water? One of those things are protectorant. You have to have it to protect. You need firearms to make sure that you are taking care of your family and also harvesting animals for your family to eat. So there is a multi-tool there that no matter what you say, it is valuable to you and it allows you to know that you are taking care of your family. Secondly would be water. Water is the vital key to life. We've talked about food shortages. We've talked about how we believe the food industry has been manipulated, and you can check those videos out, the last ones we made. However, when it comes to water, that's even more important. So let's talk about two issues. Let's talk about what the states are doing to some of those people in those areas, and I want your opinion on it and see if I'm just wrong or there's more to the story of compliance and overregulation that's going to make us fall like ducks in a row. It's probably not the best thing to do when we talk about government and how we believe that they're probably not looking out for us. So let's talk about firearms as number one. So by now you probably have heard the fact of the ATF, the FBI, or the law enforcement agency that went to the house of the gentleman who bought multiple guns. I think there was only 2 that actually was purchased. They brought up prior records on other guns. And the sad thing is the gentleman kind of backed off for a little bit, but then it looks like he just kind of gave into it and let them look at the guns. First and foremost, they're fishing. So if they fish at your area and they're trying to find out what you have, the last thing you want to do is, you know, show them or say, hey, yeah, of course, come in my house, look at my guns. That's not where we want to be, because then that puts you even more on a list. Now, like me, I've lost all my guns in a fishing accident, so I have no guns here on farm.
Ain't that the truth, son?
However, if all of a sudden I do have guns, the last thing I want them to do is for the bureaucracy to come on my farm to say, I need to see something that you haven't, especially if they don't have a warrant or any reason to be at my property. They're not seeing anything and they're gonna get off my property. Why does government want to know about your guns? Well, that's pretty easy. Look at what's happened in a lot of the areas such as first world countries, kind of like ours. Look at Australia, look at Europe, a lot of areas in Europe where they have taken guns away, and it's allowed the government to have more regulation without anyone coming against them. Now, I don't want to start a revolt. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you know there's 200 or 300 million guns in America, I believe the government will step with a lighter footing and that regulation won't come nearly as fast. Now, do I believe that we're going towards a reset? Absolutely. And the reason I say that is because if they control the food and the energy, that's going to make people do what they want them to do. When you're hungry, you're easy to manipulate. When you're thirsty, you're easy to manipulate. When you have no money, you're easy to manipulate. So guns and water are 2 of those facets that go along with that. If you can't defend yourself, or have security for yourself, or say that you just want to be able to kill your own animals and hunt and gather your own food. If you have no firearms for that, then it's going to make your life a little bit harder, and it's also going to make the government have a chance to be able to step in on you just a little bit more. We don't necessarily see that American-wide yet. However, you've seen probes in Missouri, you've seen probes in Delaware, you've heard a lot of attorney generals and sheriffs come out and say, no, you know, this is not going to happen in my area. The scary thing is, though, you've seen some conservative, quote-unquote conservative sheriffs say, well, this might be a good thing. Government is great about spinning the narrative, and they're using the news, of course, to do the same thing, to where they're meant to believe that, hey, they're here to help you. They're just looking out for your well-being. They're worried about other people taking your guns, so they want to know about your guns so they can help make sure that you have your guns and that you're safe. That's bull. That is so much. That is a step of a cow patty out here in my field. Make sure that you understand that whatever you have, you need to have, and you need to know what it is, and no one else needs to. You need to make sure that you have firearms, and if you have firearms, you have enough ammo, how to reload that ammo. The last 2 years, you've seen big box stores. They don't need the government. It's that public-private partnership. The government doesn't actually have to say, I'm regulating it. They're saying, businesses, if you want to do business with us, you're going to have to regulate it. So now you see these big box stores getting away from selling guns or selling ammo. So what are you going to do? A gun's no good without ammo. So make sure you are putting your firearms and your ammo up and making sure you stockpile the mess out of it. And the last thing you want people to know is what you have. Because if they know you have it, they're coming to get it. Especially the government and their over-regulatory bodies that are stepping in on these people. So make sure you know your rights. No one should be on your property, especially if you've not done anything wrong. Now, if you broke the law and you've done something stupid, you know, that's stupid. Learn to be the gray man. We talked about this in another video. You want to be someone who knows what's going on, but the last thing you want to do is just hold your hands up and act like a clown and bring attention to you. So make sure you're doing all that you can to stockpile your firearms and your ammo, because the government is cranking down on audits. They call them audits to help because they're scared people are stealing your guns. They're making sure they're building relationships with these big box stores who are slowly but surely taking some kind of ammos away, some kind of guns away. Make sure you're being aware of that. Don't let it happen to you. I'm glad to see attorney generals like, I think the Missouri attorney general and some of the sheriffs stood up and said, you know, we will go to jail for our people. We're not allowing them to know what's happening. So I would challenge you to talk to your attorney general, your representatives, and also your local sheriff to make sure they are aware of what's going on and that they don't kowtow and they don't toe the line to what big government says. Secondly, and most important for our life-sustaining ability, is water. Water. I've talked about this in other videos where the crisis of water rights and making sure that you can control your own water, that's a big concern. We have had rains daily, so I am thankful and I love living in Southeast United States because our rains are very, very good. For some of you people that live out west, some of you people that live in these bureaucratic states that are overregulated, you better migrate and get out of there, first of all, or either be ready to deal with the consequences of your government and also your overregulation situations. So let's talk about California for a second. Of course, wonderful California, this wonderful place that has been destroyed by overregulation and government bureaucracy. All of a sudden now, if you own a well, you have paid for that well. You own the property that well sits on. Your house is on there. No matter if your property is paid for, your well's paid for, you're getting taxed property tax wise every year from the government, which is a big load of crap, by the way. I cannot stand property tax. I think it's the biggest Ponzi scheme ever, but that's not for this video. But they're now coming in and saying, well, since the area looks a little dry and you own a well, your water is actually our water, so we're gonna need to know about your well. Now, you've already probably reported your well. You probably got the license to drill that well. Now they're wanting to say, I want you to tell us about your well. I want you to tell us what you're irrigating with that well. I want you to pay a fee, a fine, a tax, a lien against your property because it's actually my water. So since you're pulling my water that you've paid for the land, you've paid for the well, but I want you to pull my water out, you're gonna be taxed on that water. And depending on how much that you pull, you may be even taxed more. If you're feeding animals across this big acreage here, or you're watering fruit and food, Well, you know, that feeds America. But hey, no worries. I still want to tax you because that water is actually my water for the state level. Now, does that make sense to you? I bought this property here in Mississippi. I put a well in here. I have a lake and river. But to the government standards in California right now, and what's scary is it's moving across all these states, is that they believe they own that water. And they believe that well is there. So then if you have the well, you actually have access to water that's actually the government's water. It's not yours. You didn't, even though you bought the land, you still pay taxes. It's still basically ours. Does that make sense to you? That's stupid. So now for you people who own wells, be looking at your regulations and legislation that's coming down. You're gonna have to tell them how deep your well is. You're going to have to report all your information. Again, they're coming on your property, seeing what your well's doing, because ultimately it's their water. That's crazy. Now let's talk about a second scenario that I think is happening in Colorado. So if you're from Colorado or California, leave comments below and tell me what's happening in your neck of the woods. But you're starting to see, and it's going to happen in California and a lot of these other liberal states too, is that, hey, we can't harvest rainwater. That's the water that's from the sky. I pretty much own to. The government owns that water. No matter where it falls, it's the government's water. That's a load of cow manure right there. So the water that God provides us to have to feed and nurture our grounds. Look at this lush green grass back here. And these pines, this lush green grass, this pigs and cows right here beside me in these gardens. They're being fed by the water that is from the sky that I believe, again, as a conservative Christian, I believe that that water is falling, that God has provided to take care of our families. But no. Government knows best. So that water actually belongs to them. So you're no longer able to catch water. You can't catch rainwater because that rainwater actually filters down to our waters, and we need those waters. That's dangerous. Now, I have a lot of people who will come on here and say, wow, water rights is the only way we have water here over in the west areas. Look, first and foremost, again, I wouldn't live where you live. I commend you for living in those areas that water is sparse, but no one owns the water that's falling from the sky. Come on now, that's ridiculous. You need to be able to catch your own water. Now, that brings up a huge point. If you're in these areas like California, Colorado, or any of these areas that water is a rationed situation and a precious commodity, it's precious to all of us, but in those areas where they own your water, quote unquote, own your water, you better be making sure you're putting up crap loads of water, mess loads of water. Make sure you are doing all that you can, because without water, nothing matters. You can't grow anything, you can't grow your food, you can't feed animals, you can't take care of yourself. What does that mean? That makes you more susceptible to say, government, whatever you do, save me. That's not what we need, guys. Make sure that you are doing what you can to solve the issue. Catch your water when you can. Stockpile your water. Make sure you are building furrows, shallow wells. Look into some of those items. Please, I mean, I'm not criticizing you for living in those areas, but just like me, my days are hot, so I have to prepare for hotter weather. My climate is hotter and humid, so there's different ways I have to prepare my property than what you would have to do in the north, or the northwest, or the northeast, the southwest. You guys, you're gonna have to prepare more with water. You have to figure out the best way to catch water that is not right now, that right now may not be illegal, so catch as much as you can. Go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy those big septic tanks sitting outside that you can have potable water, that when the water comes off your roof or the water comes off wherever it's coming, or you're able to build up in a ravine, you can make that water flow into those holders, and you have a way, like a little cistern, basically to take care of your family. If not, you need to be buying gallons and gallons and gallons of water. I think it's crazy to pay for water. However, at Walmart, you can go and buy a 94-cent gallon full of water. Buy 5 of those a week. That's only $5, y'all. Skip out on one Big Mac and buy 5 gallons of water per week. Find ways to store those in food grade buckets that can seal off and put it up for your family. Don't wait until the government has to step in to give you water. You start doing it now where you're not susceptible on them coming around and telling you what to do with your own water. So as we've talked in all these videos, you need to make sure we see the small steps that government is taking towards our freedoms. I'm not telling you to do anything other than build wisdom. Don't listen to me. Read for yourself, gain wisdom for yourself, and understand what is happening in our world, especially in America. No matter if you're on this side of the spectrum or this side of the spectrum, you should be worried about food, water, energy. When I hear people say, oh, there's no food shortage, okay, well, food costs way more than it should. If that's your ploy and that's your argument to me that food shortage is not real, then argue the fact that food's up 20 and 30%. See if that makes it feel better. Water is being rationed, and you're seeing droughts in some areas where people are now selling livestock to where food is not being made, food is not being harvested, and then also they're rationing your water. And then all of a sudden they're taking your energy and skyrocket. Have you looked at your bill lately for energy? Have you looked at what your propane and your natural gas is going to cost for winter this year? Have you looked at what these companies are charging you per kilowatt? It's gone up. So those three things are now taking your dollar away. Then all of a sudden we say, oh, inflation's added, so it's taking more dollars to do the things that we normally would do discretionary wise. So then last step is typically people stand up against government. Well, guess what? They take your guns. They regulate your guns. They scare you. They use scare tactics to say you don't need guns. We're going to protect you. So if all of this stuff is going wrong, and then they take the only defense mechanism you have and the way that you can harvest an animal, or the ways that you can protect your family from other people, what do you have? Be thinking of how you see slowly your freedoms are getting taken away. Liberty was not free. Freedom isn't free. We need to understand that if I want to grow these pigs, and I want to grow this farm, and I want to have cows, and I want to have a family who can be raised on farm, it may cost us more than we think. But we have to be informed. We have to be wise, and we have to see what's going on. Most of all, I challenge you. We have hope no matter what, because again, our hope is, of course, in Christ and Jesus. But for you who are living in despair and struggling with making ends meet, you don't know which way, you're overwhelmed, you don't know what to do in prepping, ultimately have hope and know there can be a better tomorrow. But the more we wise up together, the more that we understand, the more we can be informed to know what the best decision is. And last few thoughts. Do I believe that there is a place for government? Yes. Do I believe there's a place for paying taxes? Now, I believe in a flat tax, and that's a whole nother video and a whole nother day. But there is a place for taxes. But I've been taxed on my money that I make, to then turn around and buy a gun to be taxed again on it, for them to overregulate it. I've been taxed on the property I bought, and I'm taxed every year on the property because I'm paying property tax, which is a crock. And then they're telling me now I got to be taxed and fined more because of the water that I'm using. Wake up, guys. Guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Just a little snippet of two things that I think that the government is rattling people on, and they're taking their rights away from you. Don't let them do it. God bless. Happy homesteading, y'all.